Thank you, Guy, and welcome to Byte.
Thank you. Thanks, Stacey.
It's great to have you here, and we're very excited to hear, I guess, your thoughts and your insights. But I guess before we sort of get going through some of the questions, there'd probably be some clients, partners, and possibly some peers of ours that don't know a lot about Equinix.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit about the history and its role in Australia.
Yeah, I'd love to. So Equinix was founded in 1998. So we've been operating now for 25, 26 years, celebrated our 25th birthday last year.
Yep.
Here in Australia, we've been operating for 22 years. And Equinix, its name actually comes from equal, neutral internet exchange, Equinix. And what the founders could see is that there was a need for a facilitation of internet traffic by a neutral party. And so we started out with 2 sites in the US. Today, we're now more than 250 around the world. And these sites are data centers. So now industrial scale size buildings, very, very large facilities. And we work with almost every kind of company you can imagine around the world, Fortune 500, global cloud providers, network service providers like Telstra, Optus and Vocus here in Australia. So yeah, very broad customer base, and yeah, it's just thrilling to kind of see where the business is going and where it's come from.
I, was only just talking to you about we don't have a conversation these days without mentioning AI.
That's right.
But how do you envisage the role of AI over the next decade and the role it has with businesses?
Big question. Big
Yeah.
question. Yeah. So look, we were just talking about this, and certainly 2023 was this enormous consumer hype cycle around AI, largely led through ChatGPT. And pleasingly, I think that hype cycle is starting to subside, and we're starting to see, corporate Australia and enterprises around the world starting at a board level, really thinking through what does AI mean for their business. And there's a lot of focus on the opportunity that AI presents, but there's a corresponding risk with that. And that's certainly what I talk to a lot of CEOs around the country about, firstly managing that risk and then thinking about what opportunity they can explore. Where does it go 10 years from now? I think where people are maybe a little distracted is that while it's great that you can write a 40-word haiku or whatever it is that people are doing, the real power of AI is going to be how we interact with technology on a daily basis. And so if you think about how you book a flight today, you've got to go into your airline, you've got to look at, do I use points? I want to go on this time, I want this taxi to take me to this hotel. Whereas if you fast forward 10 years, you'll be able to just talk to a device and say, I want to land in Melbourne on 11 o'clock and I want a taxi to meet me and take me in my hotel so I've got get to my 1 o'clock lunch, and do all of that. And in the background, AI will do all of that manual work that we do today, kind of clicking and scrolling. That's the real power of AI. That's where we'll get efficiency in our lives. And I think that's the really exciting part.
Yeah. So we recently saw the announcement of your partnership with Nvidia.
Yep.
So can you provide some color around that partnership?
Yeah, look, Nvidia is one of the most exciting companies on the planet right now. Many people hadn't heard of them until about a year ago, once they became $1 trillion plus valuation. We've actually worked with them for many years. Their CEO was at our analyst day a few years ago. So artificial intelligence, whilst it's kind of hitting mainstream now in terms of consumer consciousness, we've been working with organizations like Nvidia, but particularly Nvidia, pretty closely for a number of years. And AI has been happening. It just hasn't been kind of mainstream. But the announcement that you're referring to is that we've reached an agreement with Nvidia where they will deploy their private AI, their kind of large scale systems with Equinix in our data centers around the world. And this is really important for 2 reasons. One is that these AI systems are very complicated, and in some cases, they are a very large investment from these organizations. And so this really takes the burden away from them to think about, okay, where am I going to put it? How am I going to power it? How do I design it? How do I connect it? By working with Equinix, we will do all of that with Nvidia. And so it really makes it easy for the customer to think about that AI workload or workloads and how they want to just go on and run that and manage that. And so we're super excited about that. Already been fielding a number of inquiries for some customers, and it's really exciting as well to hear what they actually want to use this infrastructure for.
Yeah, I can hear the empowerment for all businesses, regardless of the size. So, what customers do you think will be the first movers of these types of technology investments?
Yeah, so I mentioned before that I've taken a number of inquiries just over the last
Yep.
couple of weeks. I would describe them as probably ASX top 20 or 30. It is a significant investment. This particular announcement won't be for everybody. There are other ways to access AI environments than this. This is really the dedicated infrastructure that enterprises are going to use long term for generating large language models and things like that. So certainly ASX 50, and then on the other side will be the startups who are looking to use technology as a differentiator. So to give you an example, there's an organisation called Harrison AI, based out of Sydney. We've been working with them for a number of years now, and they use artificial intelligence to detect in radiology and pathology scans, working side by side with the clinician to help identify any issues faster and with greater accuracy, which ultimately leads to better patient outcomes. And so they're a wonderful example of how AI can be used complementing existing expertise to drive better delivery.
How does sustainability fit into that story? So, with AI, there's increased workloads, which can, I guess, result in complex cooling, more power.
Yep.
So moving on to, I guess, resulting in more carbon.
Mm-hmm.
I note your recent announcement about your signing yesterday,
Yep.
which is great news. But how do you help pass that on to the customers?
Yeah. Yeah, so there's probably a little bit of a misunderstanding there about these higher power requirements and what it means for the environment. Without a doubt, AI workloads and GPUs do drive what we call higher density. And what we mean by that is that within the computer unit, that it requires more power than legacy systems. So that is without a doubt the case. But we're making some really interesting and exciting advancements in other aspects of technology. So the first piece is that if you can do more with less real estate footprint, then there's less equipment, there's less consumption, there's less things that need to be recycled. So that's a positive. And the other thing that's especially exciting in our space is that there's now this adoption of liquid cooling. And what we mean by liquid cooling is that servers and computers for 30 or 40 years have all operated on air cooling. So if you think about sometimes your laptop might start really making some noise.
Yep.
That's the fan trying to extract more air into the system to cool it down faster. So it's generally when those systems are operating at a high load. If you walk through a data center like Equinix, you'll hear these fans whirring all over the site. And the louder they're working, that means the more compute they're trying to process. So what liquid cooling does is it actually cools down that server through liquid directly on the device versus air cooling. And what that means is we get an efficiency of somewhere around the range of about 10x. And so that means that we're using a lot less air to cool these systems. Yep. And it's a lot more efficient, which again is better for the environment. And
Yep.
so whilst the technology is demanding greater power consumption, there's other advancements we're making that will help ultimately reduce the carbon footprint.
I keep hearing about PPE, PUE.
Yeah.
Can you explain that one to me?
Yeah, of course. So PUE is a major factor in our business, in the data center business, and it stands for power utilization effectiveness. And so essentially what it's saying is that what's the overhead of running a system in your data center versus another data center or an office or a business park. And so a factor of one is that you are just using exactly the amount of power that you require for that application. So that's perfect. Data centers generally operate in the kind of 1.3 to 1.4 range, which is where Equinix sites around the world generally sit. That's very efficient. If you were to think about using or building an environment in an office like this, for example, or in a business park, your PUE would be somewhere in the range of 2 to 3. So you're requiring 2 to 3x the amount of energy you need to actually run that application or that workload. So the lower the number, the better.
Yep.
So that's PUE.
It's great to understand a little bit more about sustainability, but now I want to focus on some of the other trends you're seeing. Cloud adjacent storage. What market trends are you currently observing that could significantly impact, I guess, the cloud and the data storage?
Yeah, absolutely. So cloud adjacent storage is what we describe as storage, which is located proximate to where a cloud provider's connectivity is. And so what I mean by that is cloud providers have their regions around the world, which is where all of their infrastructure is hosted. And then there are these on-ramps, many of which are hosted in Equinix facilities. And so if you're the customer of a cloud provider, you want to connect privately to your workloads in that cloud provider, then there are these on-ramps. And they're in facilities around the world and many at Equinix. And so that leads us back to your question around cloud adjacent storage. And so what we're really seeing is that customers are saying, I'd love to use all the benefits and advantages I get with my cloud provider or cloud providers, but I want my storage to be on-site, on-premise, somewhere that I can easily access it and know exactly where it is. And there may be data sovereignty reasons around that and many other pieces. And so working with a couple of key vendors and partners like NetApp and Pure Storage, customers of Equinix are now able to jump onto a portal and just start consuming cloud services in our data centers in a very easy and elastic fashion, but knowing that kind of permanence of where exactly that storage device is, that they get the connectivity to their cloud provider and are able to do all the things they would normally do.
So it really sounds like providing flexibility regardless of where they are in their journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I have probably got just one more question,
Okay.
but for me, probably most important question of all.
Yeah.
And probably relevant to nearly every customer. So regardless of where you are in the business, CEO, CFO, CIO, what advice would you give organizations aspiring to lead and adopt technologies faster than their competitors?
That's a great question. Great question.
Told you it was my favorite one.
Yeah, look, it's a great question because it's at the heart of a lot of what Equinix, what we've been thinking about over the last few years and what we hear from our customers. And we talk about this concept of a digital leader. And what we mean by that is organizations that are seeking to have a competitive differentiator or a competitive advantage through technology. And that's certainly where we see a lot of our customer base emerging, and I think Byte is in the same position. And so I guess the advice I would give to those folks is think about the strategy of what you're trying to achieve and where technology can help. We talked before about Harrison AI, wonderful organization, obviously trying to achieve a very noble cause, but using technology to help them in those aims. And so we see around mining sites, we've got a large business in Western Australia. And when you think about how people used to have to fly up in helicopters and survey mine sites, all of that now can be done with drones.
Yeah.
It can be done in a much safer fashion. You can be doing it in a much more consistent fashion.
Yep.
But that technology needs to be stored somewhere. It needs to be analysed. It needs to be distributed. And so there's this kind of rising tide lifts all boats. But across all industries, we see digitization as being a huge opportunity in terms of how companies interact with their customers, with their staff, and with other key stakeholders. And so I think that would be the advice. Think about the strategy. Think about how you feel technology can help. And then it's really talking to your trusted technology advisors, hopefully one of which is Equinix and hopefully another one is Byte.
Yep.
To sit down and have that conversation about how can we help you achieve your strategy and your objectives.
And it is really important, I guess, on that strategy is both customers, employees, the overall organisation and the business goals is all part of that consideration, which is very much what we focus on as well.
Yeah, fantastic.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for your time, Guy. I've really appreciated it. I've learned a lot.
Anyway.
A few new acronyms.
It's something the technology industry doesn't lack, it's acronyms. So
that's right.
We have plenty of those at Equinix. But no, Stacey, thank you for your time and thank you for the partnership with Byte.
No, looking forward to more catch-ups over the period of time as well, Guy.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye-bye.